Well, hello everybody. It's really good to see you. Glad you could make it to this listening session. And you've probably heard a lot of kind of publicity about these, so we're trying to reach as many people as possible. And these listening sessions are about the potential renovations to the sanctuary. Nothing is set in stone, so just keep in mind that we're going to bring some things forward. Nothing has been decided. So we just want to make everybody aware of what some of the thoughts are. So my name is Andy Ranisak. I think most of you probably either know me or have heard of me. I've been in the parish from the time we started the parish. So we formed a committee, and the we is really Father Charlie asked 5 people to join his committee for the renovation. And let me flip to that slide. And then we'll come back to this. I'm Andy, and then we have Debbie George, who is Chaplain Debbie George. Karen Ochoa, who is Deacon David's wife. Elorum, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce her last name. She is Selasi's daughter, and Jorge Jimenez. And y'all probably have seen Jorge around too. So we're the committee, and so what we'll do is we'll start off with a prayer, and then we'll jump right into this thing. I'm hoping that we can limit it to about an hour, and so we won't keep you past your lunchtime too much. Okay, let's say the Memorare. That's become the prayer that we've been using for this renovation committee and our meetings at the committee. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thy intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, Virgin my Mother. To thee I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And just pray for this whole process that it comes out good as we go through it, and it comes out good on the other side. So there's a lot to be done. So back to the committee. Just to give you a little bit of background, we've done some work over the last couple of months. We've met quite a few times we're kind of doing the organizational piece and the informing the parish piece and that sort of thing. And our main role is to get the word out and to get feedback. And Father Charlie had obtained a lot of suggestions from various parishioners. He said from the time he had come to the parish, he's been approached by a lot of folks with ideas and thoughts about the sanctuary and things in general in the parish. We're focusing on the sanctuary. And so that is where it originated. But then we had the winter storm. And so as a part of that, there was some damage, obviously. It kind of started blending together a little bit because there's some intersection between what is restoration and what is renovation. And so there can be a little bit of a blending in some areas. And so anyway, we became educated on what the thoughts were out there. There was an architect that is the brother of a priest that Father Charlie knows well, and he offered to do some renditions of some changed looks and arrangements in the sanctuary. And so we looked at that and we became very familiar with that, and we developed a survey because we want to get a lot of feedback from the parish. So there's a survey out there, and you've probably seen the links and the little QR codes in the bulletin and on the website. So go take the survey. Even if you come to a listening session, we still want you to take the survey, and we'll talk about the survey a little bit later on. Another thing that we did was organize these listening sessions. And so that is the stage we're at currently. And then we will do an analysis and, give that feedback that we've accumulated and analyzed back to the parish. Okay? So, moving on. So there's restoration and renovation. So the restoration obviously is the damage that's been done by the broken pipes, and that is underway. The insurance settlement has finally come in, and so work is supposed to start, I believe, today on some additional renovation. And so, restoration. We don't want to mix those two up. And then there's, the pews and the chairs and all that was damaged. So none of that's really been fixed other than the fire retardant thing. The Firetron came in and plugged all the pipes and all that stuff. And that was a mess. It took a lot to do that. And the ceiling, a lot of the ceiling's been damaged. And so they're going to replace the ceiling. That's the first order of business, is to get that ceiling replaced. Okay? And then the pews are going to be the next step. And so there's a lot of pews that got damaged, and then those have to be fixed, but they will no longer really match the others. So what's being looked at is to renovate and refurbish all of the pews. Okay? All right. For the restoration, we're trying to get that done as soon as possible. That's underway. But the renovation, the timelines for that, there's nothing immediate that's going to happen, because the goal for this is the 25th anniversary of the sanctuary, not of the parish, but of the sanctuary. And that's in the fall of 23. So that is kind of the ultimate goal. And so it's not something that, is going to be immediate. First step we talked about, we're going to restore the sanctuary. As I alluded to, there have been some thoughts brought forward, and so that's what's being looked at, and we're going to look at the drawings and all of those points about what potential renovations there are. Some of them involve new technology or updated technology and things of that nature. But the one big thing is that nothing will be done if the money's not in the bank. There's no new debt, because we already have a debt with the PAC, with this building. So no additional debt. So what that really means is you've seen already some collections being done for, again, it's kind of blending into renovation and restoration, because some of the restoration is really not paid by insurance. But so it'll blend together a little, but nevertheless, depending on what gets done, the amount of money needed is going to change. So we'll jump right into it. One of the items, these are just kind of some not real detailed drawings, okay, but it will give you the idea, because this is where the stained glass is right now. To give you a point of reference, this is where the ambo is, and the altar is kind of right down in here. And so all of this area is raised up, and so one of the suggestions is to extend that raised area, with the ultimate goal being that the altar could be put on that raised area, and I'll show you a drawing of that here in just a second. And so that's really all this first slide presents, is that there is a raised area. Now this shows with that, and we call this option 1, where really we're just talking about raising the altar. And it would go where you see the arrow pointing, and it would be on that raised area. The tabernacle would remain where it is. Stained glass wall stays where it is. So that is one item that's being considered, is to do that raising and to put the altar on that first level. This just shows an elevation of what that would look like, and you can just envision that's on that first level, and then the ambo would be off to the side a little bit further, I think, to the left than it is currently, as depicted here. But that really just gives you that idea, and that shows on here one of the things that may be done is that the crucifix that is hanging there currently and the sound, the circular sound mechanism, the it is not shown on this drawing because one of the things that's being looked at is to kind of relocate the sound speakers and all of those things. Okay. And then you also see some lights hanging down, because one of the things we're going to talk about after a while is different kind of lighting in the church. Okay, and so we'll address that in more detail in just a little bit. But that elevation does show those items, and that crucifix would be, you know, right over the altar. Okay, a second way of making some changes is a little bit more extensive. We still have the raised area, like we talked about at first, but this would raise the altar and the tabernacle 2 more steps. Okay? Y'all have probably obviously been in a lot of churches where you kind of step up to the altar. And so this is presenting that concept of having a 3-tiered elevation for the altar and the tabernacle. And one thing you will notice, though, I'm sorry I can't point to this thing with my little pointer because it doesn't show on a TV. Okay?
Oh, that's right.
So if I had it'll show next time on the screens when we do it in the narthex. But over here is where the stained glass is. But you'll notice that the stained glass is not there on this particular drawing. So that's one item that we're going to address is the relocation of that stained glass wall. And so I think that you kind of get the idea there. A raised altar and tabernacle 3 levels up. And I forgot to mention at the beginning, we're going to have a question and answer comment period at the end of this. So if you're thinking about things and have some questions, hold them, and we'll address all of those at the end, okay? This shows similarly an elevation that you can see the tiers. So this being the first one right here, second, third, and then the altar. And the tabernacle, you can't really see it, but it would be at the same level behind it. And so the stained glass window is no longer there, and then the lighting and the crucifix would be like we saw on the first one. Okay. This one we'll spend a little bit more time on because we talked about the front part of the church where the altar and tabernacle are. This addresses some reconfiguration of pews and of the space itself, okay? And so one of the items is to add and reconfigure pews. Because currently the pews end kind of back in this area because, you know, we have this diagonal entrance right there, okay? So this shows quite a few pews being added, and it goes into that open space that y'all are accustomed to seeing in the church. So in this particular drawing, it does go fairly deep into that space. And the other thing that is being done is, on this drawing, is some handicap seating will be added to the main sanctuary, or is added in this drawing. And that's represented by those 2 chair-looking lines right here on each side. And we currently, you know, kind of have handicap, you know, kind of find it where we can. There's not a designated handicap area. What this would require, however, which is somewhat of a bigger change, is that if you put all those pews in there, you no longer can have that diagonal entrance, okay? And it would mean using the center aisle for the main processional entrance. And that was kind of like what Father Mack used to do. He used to come down the center aisle, but he would kind of weave around from the main entrance behind the pews and go down the center aisle. This would actually add an entrance at the back. So there would be a double door entrance there for the priest and the processional group to enter. Okay? So then there's these 4 things kind of address rearranging the pews, adding pews, different entrance, and the handicap seating. The other thing that is proposed or has been talked about being done is the choir being moved to that first section. And you can see the organ and all on that right, on your right there at the front. Now, when the church was built, there's kind of a different landing there, and I believe the original intent was that the choir would be in that area. And so that's one of the things that's being looked at, is to put the choir in that area. The other thing that's been talked about a lot over the years, and it's come up again, is the cry room, small children area. Because as you know, our gathering space is really that area. And in this initial sketch of the space, the area that is right at what is currently the main entrance, that is a possibility for an area where the younger families could sit with their children. And so that's what that represents. We mentioned earlier that the circular speaker system would be, if we want to do the crucifix and all like this was shown on that elevation, it would be relocated, not the circular speaker system, but the technology itself, the speakers, would be, you know, something more like akin to what you see in the pack here, where you've got those vertical speakers. And then there's some other speakers in the ceiling already that would stay, because they're part of the overall system. And one of the parishioners, Andy Miller, is a sound expert. I think he's a sound engineer or an acoustics engineer, and he's looked at it. So he talked to Father and said, you know, it's possible to do that. So, because there was some question about, you know, how can we really, you know, have good sound if we do it in another manner? But with the new technology, we are told that it will be, you know, improve the sound. We talked about the larger crucifix, and I think I mentioned that it's the one that's currently in the adoration space, and the one that's in the church would go to the adoration space. Okay, it would be a swap. The lighting, one of the things that was brought up was to use what's referred to as ecclesiastical lighting, the hanging lights that you see in churches, versus we have more of a, you know, kind of a theatrical type lighting, and a lot of it is because of how the building was drawn, was built, and also some of it's just the way it was done, which, and so there's talk about possibly looking at that. Or not possibly, but looking at that and determining if that's something that we'd want to do. And the other item, there's like a St. Jude statue with candles. There's Our Lady of Guadalupe, and there's also candles in front of Mary and Joseph. And so there's been some suggestions about setting up a nice devotional space in the gathering area rather than in the sanctuary. So those are kind of the main items that this potential renovation is addressing, okay? And I'll leave that up because that's probably gives just to refresh your memory, I'll flip by real quickly through these to give you a picture of that elevation. But those are the things that have been brought forward and that are being addressed by the parish leadership and this committee, and being brought forward to the parish for y'all to, you know, do surveys, give us your opinions and all of that. Because I'm just up here telling you what the possibilities are, and we want to know what everybody thinks, you know. So everybody has some preferences and some thoughts. And that's not going to be free, you know. There will be money involved, so you got to keep all that in mind. And if so, anyway, I'll open the floor up now to some just discussion, questions, that sort of thing. Anybody want to open?
Andy, those seats on the side, on that one you just showed, I mean, you're just gonna be facing this way and the altar's gonna be over there to your left, right? Correct? I mean, the side seats, like the two.
Yeah.
Those that are.
These
Yeah,
right here?
Yeah, no, you're gonna have to sit like that to see the altar, I mean.
That is correct, because currently the altar is more in this area here.
Yeah, right, okay,
Okay,
okay.
yeah.
Those extra permanent pews there, they take away some of the space that we normally use for other religious type things that we want to do, like Boar's Head for one,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever else. I think they should be removable type seats. Those first two rows there.
Okay, that's a good comment, John.
Andy, in this one, the stained glass window then has been removed.
And let's talk about that just a little bit. Yeah.
That's I'm curious.
Yeah,
about that.
that stained glass window is not going to be like thrown away or gotten rid of. The
Okay.
intent is to relocate it. And one of the thoughts that has been brought forward is to put it in the baptistry. And the ceiling of the baptistry is a potential place to relocate and reinstall that
So
window,
you'd look
that
up
stained
to
glass.
see that stained
And
glass.
Steve Walden can probably explain this a little better, but that stained glass has some significance and some meaning.
Mhm.
And it's, like the 15th station, the resurrection and that sort of thing. And so in the baptistry may be something that is appropriate. I don't know, that's something that's been brought up.
Sure.
So that's why that was brought up. Steve, do you want to say anything about that?
So, yeah, you want to flip it maybe back a couple of, or one or two of your first iterations there, that look, I guess, raising there's another one before this, option one. So, when we went through the 5-year planning process to build this current structure, the overwhelming input that we received was to maintain a lot of flexibility in the space, because we had observed other parishes, like most of us came from St. Louis. And this last rendition that you had option 3, it reinstitutes that closed off structure that was what was not wanted in that 5-year planning process to maintain this flexibility. So by doing all of this congestion, because we wanted to have the ability to layer in, flexible seating and take it out, because we knew that what had just happened was the yogurt shop murders had happened, and those 4 girls and their funerals were at St. Louis Parish. And we couldn't, those caskets had to be they couldn't even put the caskets in the front of the church. And so we said, we'll never do that. We're gonna have flexibility. If we have a double wedding, we're gonna have flexibility. If we have multiple deaths, a car wreck, whatever, we will take care of our people. We're gonna be able to put those caskets up there. And that's what the discussion was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And over the years, it turned out to be that input was pretty good, because we have had incredible flexible events happen. And like, for example, the U.S. Council of Catholic Bishops had a big event back here a few years back, and you can see, we used to have photos of it inside the narthex. And there was all these bishops gathered around. It's like, well, where would they be? So where would these other sacramental things that we've done, many, if you think about the times when we have a regular full mass, there's all this movement and transition of the people.
Yeah.
How's that gonna go? We would have to distribute communion way out in the peripheries. There would not be the circulation up to the front. So we would lose all that flexibility. So, my comment would be, let's not forget, why did we do that? Oh yeah, well, we wanted to maintain flexibility, and if we do this, we will never have that flexibility again. You can't go, oh, we're gonna take out these pews now. No. So making a mobile, where are you gonna put the mobile pews?
And where would you store them?
And who's gonna move those around, and how's that gonna go? So, so we put that flexible space up here so that you could then in events, if you can store the right kind of chairs, so you can move it in there if you need to. We've always wanted and thought about doing that. So you can get the seating with that flexibility, but to put it in permanent and to put this all the way back, moves the Blessed Sacrament, the whole process of, of what happens in the miracle that happens in every mass is moved further away into a apex point away from the people. which is
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
actually planned to not do.
That's right,
We actually
yeah.
planned to put it out there and have the people surround it.
Mhm.
So we would be constructing a strategy to overcome what took 5 years to plan and execute, so.
Okay, well,
But I'm
thanks
not
for-
saying don't do anything.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
but there's the way that, what, and I've also thought about this idea of raise, I think it's an excellent idea to raise the height of the altar, but, I talked to one of the architects that was the principal architect on the building, and he thought it was a great idea, and he said, put a high-quality mobile platform that's wood, that looks like a really beautiful, you know, you can have highly well finished, it has little platforms for even on-ramps for wheelchairs, and it would come up here, and then that way it's raised, but it's not tucked away, and it's still kind of connected in, and
Mhm.
you can move it. Oh, yeah, we need to move it. Well, we can move it if we have events that we need to move it or for whatever purpose. It's movable, but it's stationary. It looks permanent, but it can be moved. Whereas if you pour something or whatever, it's done. So I just say, let's just do whatever strategy we're gonna do.
Mhm.
So about the glass took us, that was the worst fight in the whole process between our committee because we did not determine who would, I was my fault, I was the chair, we had objective scoring on every single decision we made except one. I said, I don't know how to score
Yeah.
the artwork people, so we had 4 nationally recognized glass artists that were presented to us from the architectural committee. We had a special liturgical architect involved in the group. He gave us 4 names, he goes, here's the 4 top glass people. They were sent, they actually all had come down individually, seen the space, and does drawings and that sort of thing. Because it was already structurally going up. And they said, here's our idea, and then they each they came and made a pitch to us. I sent 4 people, one person, I said, like, Jim, you go to the airport on Sunday, get this person, and on Monday evening, we're gonna have to do the deal. So they took care of that person, each one of them got one person. And it turns out that it would be like Linda, she got her person, she came to the meeting on Monday night, absolutely committed to protecting her person. And every person, and the 4 people, they was bloodshed
That
almost
was-
over there,
of
like, how
course.
could it not be my person that I picked
Yeah.
up at the airport? I've been taking care of in my house for one day. And it's like, I thought, oh, human nature, I should have thought, they're gonna be tribaled up real quick. And those people are salespeople too, so they were selling. And so we had bloodshed over this, and so we finally had to like practically flip coins and things, and there were 4 excellent presentations. This guy presented from Dallas, this symbolic mechanism, more of a symbolism that's got nuance to it versus just like overt, exact imaging, so that you can read into. And there are numerous, and there's a document that is given. We still have it, George, at the orientation. They have a document that was given to us, and up until
About the
2 or 3 years
stained
ago,
glass.
Copy of some.
they would read this and say, here's what the architect, here's some of the imagery that you might see.
Yeah.
And so we have that.
Yeah.
That was presented to, and it has been for 2 years, the last 2 years, presented to the RCIA
Okay.
groups that are coming in, exactly what
And
you
it had,
would see in
and
that.
the idea was, that we liked about it was, it didn't have this exact imagery, and it let people use their imagination, let spiritual discernment take place, and it had, including the Virgin Mary, there's a kind of a cave-like, manger scene, there's the baby Jesus, there's a lot of stuff you can see in there, but in addition to it, there's
The
emerging
crystals,
butterfly,
yeah.
which represents the risen Christ, so there's a lot of symbolism in there, and it was related to what we do, the Stations of the Cross, and this is the risen Christ right here. And we wanted a translucent thing, but not having people being like stared at while they're worshiping for the tabernacle, but there's still light coming through, and that's why it was done what it was done. So it was a crazy process, and that we went through to get there, but it's to move it and reconfigure. I mean, I'm not saying it's a wrong. I think as a person that was heavily invested at the time, I am not at all opposed to modifications and modernizations and things that we've learned. But when I say do it, you have to do it with what we've learned, not overcome what we tried to do. I mean, it can't be, 180 from what we were trying to avoid doing.
Yeah, good point, Steve. Thanks for that historical background and for giving us that, explanation.
How many people will this accommodate now?
Just for round numbers, you see the 978 to 1041. Really, I think the seating is like 850 or 875 currently. It kind of depends on how you measure. And it would go up to 1,040 or 50, a couple of hundred more people under this configuration. About 200 more.
About 25% increase.
So, and then the other issue there would be also, that we've had, and Frank knows this, the AC, the recirculation system and the fresh air.
How are you going to cool it?
Those are all considerations, Frank, yes, absolutely. With additional people, it has to,
Because we're, Frank knows we've been down this road for a few years. We're
Yeah.
like on the hot days in the summer with a large crowd, we're on the threshold of being able to manage it now. And also the carbon monoxide management system
Sure.
is barely, actually a really full mass, you'll notice people get drowsy at the end of mass. And that's because of the carbon monoxide.
Absolutely.
And so we've gotta do something we have to more people, we're gonna have to leave some more doors open or whatever.
Right, there's environmental considerations,
It could be
obviously.
done, I'm not saying it can't be done.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you have to consider that, how you're gonna manage that.
Yeah. Do you have anything else, Frank? Did you have anything else? No. No. Did you have another question or comment?
No, I was just concerned about how you're gonna cool it, because
Yeah.
the present system is not adequate on a hot day
Yeah.
for
And,
the 11:45 and the 2 o'clock mass, at least a couple of years ago. Now, maybe they don't have as many people coming now with the more masses.
I'm sorry.
I mean, the system was designed, the original church had 800 parishioners on the drawings. And at that time, I think the hot design temperature was 100, and now it's probably at least 105. So, the system that's in there is not adequate to.
Well, something I want to point out is
that
that
many people.
this hasn't been fleshed out to the point of things like all the air conditioning and electrical and all of that. These are conceptual drawings, and depending on what direction this takes, there's going to be an awful lot of work to cover things like you're bringing up, Frank, and just many things that have to be, is there enough
They
power
just
in the
link.
building and all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
link to each other.
So, yeah, what's we're trying to get the flavor and the direction of where the parish would like to go, and what, because obviously there has been, some thought given to this by people, and they brought it forward, and so that's why we are here, is to address that, because nothing has been preconceived on this. Okay, it could go anywhere from do nothing to do something even more extensive. Yes, Linda.
Yeah, just a variety of little questions. Let's see, so the small children area, I see down to the bottom right area, so that's
Yeah.
where they're seated in the sanctuary, but just kind of have some more space to like move, I guess. And then is there still an area where if they're noisy, they would go out to, given the new entrance?
Well, they have to go to that gathering space. Something that has been brought up is that there could potentially be a quiet room, if maybe one of the rooms could have a piece of it sliced off in some manner. So that's again been discussed
Yeah.
to address what you're saying.
Okay, and then I was wondering about the height of the step right now, that's currently behind the altar where
Yeah.
the ambo is. Is that like about 4, 5 inches?
It's about 5 inches.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then the other steps, the additional 2 steps that y'all are showing in that picture for the altar and the tabernacle, would that be like 2 additional?
2 additional steps of I think the standard is what, 7 or 7.5 inches for
The
steps.
rise.
For a normal step, it's 6.5.
6.5. Okay, but it would be.
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
okay. So I was just curious about how tall, how much higher in general, so that would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like
And I don't know if it's, I'm not an architect or an
17%
engineer, so I don't know if having, like if the first one is 5 or 5.5 inches and if the next one is 6.5, does that present a problem?
That's
Yeah.
a trick
Just
hazard.
curious, about how much
Yeah.
higher it is, to help everybody's vantage point to be able to see
Yeah.
the consecration happening.
Mhm.
Great, and then, with the tabernacle behind the altar, let's see, you'd mentioned in the drawing, that was, kind of a front-on picture, that we couldn't see I think maybe that one, we couldn't see the tabernacle. So is it gonna be raised even further up so people can see it? from behind the altar?
On this one, it would remain at the same level.
Same place, so you wouldn't see
If
the
you go
tabernacle.
to this drawing here, which is where the stained glass is not there, it would be raised 2 steps.
But the same,
But it would still be the same.
same as the altar?
Same as the altar,
Okay.
same as the altar, yeah.
Okay, I was just wanting to make sure people would be able to see the tabernacle, because you mentioned in that earlier slide that we can't see the tabernacle.
So, yeah, so you're correct. They would be on the same level. Yes, sir.
When there was discussion a few years ago about redoing the hall, someone mentioned that if you did that, everything would have to be brought up to code. Would the same thing be true here?
Well, I don't know how far out of code some of this is. That has not been looked at. We were told that doing this raise right here, this front part, would not require additional, new permitting just to do that piece. And we were told that's something one of the parish folks that does that kind of work, and that's what they indicated. So, but as far as once you start changing out lighting and all that kind of stuff, I don't know what
that's gonna-
kind of things you might run into a 25-year-old building, you know? So there's,
25 years out of code.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah, it's gonna
Austin
be out
changes
of
the code.
Yeah.
There's an international
Yeah.
code that Austin uses,
Yeah.
and that was updated in like 2018 or something like that. Again, it's like every 2-3 years, so we're probably 6 or 7 iterations out.
so there's depending on what direction this all takes, there's gonna be an awful lot of detailed work taking place, with architects and engineers. But we have to know which direction, it's gonna go before we can really get into that. Now, some of it we'll have to make some preliminary estimates because, some questions are gonna come up about how much is this gonna cost?
Yeah.
Take you 10 years worth of savings so you don't go into debt.
Yeah,
But I think Steve had a real good point about the communion, the way that thing is set up. And if you look at it where all the pews are, it'd be a carnival. It'd be a Chinese fire drill in there with people, giving communion for the 2 sides and the people in the middle trying to come out and go to the front and come back down the sides and things like that. You would have to have a flowing situation for communions and
Well,
whatever.
right now, the good thing is we all flow up around the altar area, close to the altar, and that would go away. You'd have to have distributed communion.
yeah, you would,
Way out, you'd have lots of different points of distribution.
do something right in these kind of points here.
Yeah, but picture the people, if I'm right, in other words, the people in the middle, okay, the ones in the middle pews that are, okay, they would go up the main aisle, get communion, and then come back and be coming down right where that other person's giving communion, trying to get back to.
Coming around the
That's
sides.
the cue.
It would be pretty tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
And you're absolutely right, Jen. That was brought up also at one of the sessions,
Yeah.
that it does get a little bit crowded right in there. Yeah.
I'd rather add masses than have to lose all that flexibility, but, but we have flexibility. With what we have now, their chairs can be added for different times and events, but, if the polling of like, we can't have enough masses to get that done with the priests we have, then, we don't wanna overwork them, then we find a way to get some chairs in there that don't have to do that fixed densification and also moving everything, like, we're gonna have visibility issues to see, it's the consecration and all that whole, and just to feel like you're participating in mass. Because we were trying to go away from sightline problems and things like that and all that we had in the past at other, let's say older cathedral style buildings, which were only built that way because that they had to do the spans of wood and rock that they could in the 1500s or 1100s and all that some people copied. Like, well, they had to do that. They had only obstructive use because that's all they could do with their materials. We have bigger span materials now, obviously, with I-beams and things, so we don't have to do that.
So good points. And I think Francois is taking notes back there, so I hope you're recording all that because I won't remember it all. Thank you, Steve.
And that thing about taking the sound, we nobody ever liked that sound thing, but that was like the technology at the time, that's all we could get away with. But now, if we can do anything to get rid of that, big hunk of thing hanging over there. Nobody ever wanted that.
Right.
So if that needs to be done as a modernization, and the lighting improvements that need to be made with modern lighting, let's do it. Let's, that's low cost stuff that would have a big impact.
Okay, good
I
thoughts.
assume
Yes,
the church will not be usable until it's finished, until this, whatever's down here is finished.
well, this, again, remember, this is like a 2-year project. The goal is to get it done by the fall of '23. And it's going, well, for cost purposes, it will have to be phased, because we probably won't have enough money to just do everything. So the one discussion was that you could do a lot of it during the week and still have mass on Sunday in the space, okay? I don't know. I'm not really qualified to say yes or no, Frank. That was brought up, but George, you have a comment on it?
Fathers sent out an email to the ministries. That's happening on the 19th. We're having mass in the church.
Correct. Yeah. Now, yeah, that is. But I think you were talking about this
Week
whole.
from tomorrow.
But the renovation piece, you know.
I don't even know how they're gonna, because the pews cannot be even in their old spot because they have the roof above it's all wide open. So if I have the pews currently set up like the center section, just to get people in the space. And they won't be permanently set down, they'll just be sitting on the floor. So be careful getting up and kneeling, they may pull the pew in front of you up down.
So
Yeah, that's
I don't know how long, I'm afraid about this situation, but that's what Father wants to try.
yeah. So yeah, it's as George indicated, that's the plan.
But that could be done if they worked during the week and came to a close on midday Friday, so that we could then begin
Yeah.
weekend masses.
And that
That would have to be kind of a understanding
That's the
somehow.
goal, 9 days from today, or 8 days from
Well,
today.
I'm talking about if we do this.
But if we do
huge-
this-
If we do this,
Yeah, there'll be other
the
times we
big,
have to
the
not
big
be in
thing,
there,
yeah. Or we'll have to come back in here,
possibly.
you know,
Yeah.
so
You're
there's some
absolutely correct.
thinking that has to be
Well,
done.
this is kind of like in the world we live in, it's called resilience development for any institution. You know, this is really good that we built this pack in time, just in time to have any, you know, because if we didn't have this bigger pack,
It's one of those God
it's
things.
been a great.
Yeah.
God was
I'm glad
listening.
people said don't eat it, lost.
We
So
needed it.
y'all have any questions on this side over here? Anybody?
I have a question.
Yes.
Probably a stupid question, but the benches or the ones on the side, they cannot be turned to face forward?
Well, see, the floor is it slopes, and so you have to go horizontal because otherwise you'd be sliding down the bench. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sloped for good visibility to the altar,
Yeah.
more or
In the
less
center.
where it is.
Yeah.
And you can't do
But
the
that's a
floor.
good point because
You
that's
can't
the
do
people that
floor.
brought that up,
You
and
can't
that's the
elevate
problem.
floor?
You have to
Can
change
you
the
elevate the
floor.
floor?
Yeah, yeah,
elevating the floor.
yeah. If you level the floor, well then that problem would go
Maybe
away.
there's sideline issues.
See, Anthony, that comment is, somebody brought the question about the looking this way.
Yeah, Jay did.
Originally, it was set up that way so everybody would be able to see the altar and be centrally located, because it's
And
not
that's in
really,
the front.
it's not really a cruciform design, so
Yeah.
we're really looking at the altar.
Yeah.
But that's where the main action is, and those people on the side, they're looking at other people in
Yeah.
front of them, they're not looking at the altar.
Yeah,
That's a basic, very basic problem
Yeah.
there.
yeah.
I see that too.
Oh,
Good point. Thank you, Frank, for
I know
that.
it would be expensive,
Mm-hmm.
probably, but it would be more you face forward
Mm-hmm.
instead of
There
each
was a
other.
way to.
Yeah, and that would require somebody mentioned, leveling the floor.
And if you do that, you lose the gain of raising the altar, because you've raised the floor at the same level.
That much?
This area at the back here is higher than they're talking putting the altar at,
intentionally.
currently. Like, this is more than a foot above this level. It's like 2 feet above that level, so this is only talking about raising that 10, 12
Because
inches.
it slopes down.
Yeah, it slopes down from here to here, flat, and down from here to here again. There's 2 sloped areas, this area here, and this area here. Matter of fact, these pews ought to be there, so this is a pathway to a flat area, instead of walking on a slope.
Any other comments, questions?
two comments. I'm really like the idea of the larger crucifix, and the one in the Adoration Chapel is beautiful, and just to gaze on it more easily and focus on details during Mass is wonderful. Thank you. And then I know a lot of people who don't come to this parish don't visit it because they can't see the tabernacle. So I really appreciate that idea of making it somehow visible. Thank you.
There was one priest, excuse me for a minute, I gotta say that, one visiting priest one time, and my wife, God rest her soul, and I were just chatting with him because we do it. And he says, why in the world, when they designed this church, they would wanna hide Jesus?
Why would they what?
Why in the world would they want to hide
Oh,
Jesus?
yeah.
Because the tabernacle and then the glass wall.
Mm-hmm.
It was a joke, but there was a message.
There's some
And that was,
There's some truth.
that goes with what her question was.
Yeah.
There's, you know, and the truth is that there's like, over the 2,000 years of the church's evolution, there's been hundreds of different configurations that are considered correct. And there's all these pros and cons to every option. And so Bishop Sis, or whatever, he's now, San Angelo or
Yeah,
something?
San Angelo.
When he comes to our church, he goes, this is the most perfect church I've ever said Mass in. And I was like, really? And so it's like, it's a matter of taste.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of, there's all these inflection points for each person's spirituality. And of course, the tabernacle is a central thing. We've got the light issue up there that was tried to, but I'm not married to any one thing. I just want to make sure we know when we do it, we just undid this thing that we planned for. Just to know that we do it intentionally, like we know we are overcoming
Sure.
this effort to do X, not that I'm against doing anything. I'm not. We absolutely need to do some modernization issues.
How
Thank you,
about,
Steve.
how about the sequence of doing things and not getting in the way of some other project going on? Is that already figured out what you do first and what's second?
No, John. It hasn't gotten to that level because we don't know what direction is going to take. What we want to do is really have parish involvement and input, and we don't know what the final analysis is going to yield. And it's at that point that we would get into more of the project planning with the right kind of professionals.
Yeah.
So a lot of it then will be determined about what comes out of the survey.
Mm-hmm.
So the importance of the survey, I mean, it is grand that we should really look at that survey and have input on what we want.
And so you kind of got me going into the right direction here. Survey. And somebody has some other questions. We can have more questions. Let me bust through this. And y'all have seen the all the promotion, say fill out the survey and all this stuff. Okay, here's some ground rules. We want to get one survey per family, okay? So if a husband and wife really disagree, the only way you can get around that is go fill it out on a different device, okay? Because this thing only we don't have any sophisticated prevention points. It's only at the level of that device's address. And so we don't want, the same opinion expressed 10 times if it's only one person doing it, okay?
Right. Right.
And then to get to the survey, refer to the bulletin, refer to the website, our flock notes. There's links in all three places, and all you have to do is either click on the link or you can take your phone and do the QR code with your camera, okay? So that's what I was just talking about. You can do it on computer or cell phone. There's a paper survey option available. If you can do it electronically, please do it electronically. But it can be done on paper, and the office staff will input that information, and it will look like it was electronic, so all the analysis can be done in one consistent manner. Okay. And then if you do it by paper, drop it off at the office or put it in collection basket. Probably collection basket is the easiest. And then it just says the survey's got 21 questions, but the one thing most questions do have, and it includes demographics. So there's going to be some demographic analysis done, okay? Because the old people and the young people might have different opinions. So, what I was going to say is that most of these questions have an area where you can expound a little. You know, you can elaborate on what your thoughts are. So please take do that if you have some specific ideas that aren't truly reflected by just answering yes or no or that sort of thing. So anyway, and the survey is going to be open till the end of June. And then we're going to take it down and do the analysis. And one thing I want to reiterate is that this process is going to be, very open, very transparent, as everybody likes to say, okay? It's not something that's being, schemed up in the back room, and no matter what you say, it's not going to matter. That's not the way this is going to take place, okay? So rest assured that your input is very, very important.
And what I have to say that whoever designed the survey did a great job. I took the survey already, and everything you have addressed today, this afternoon, is in there. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's nothing left out, and it's actually good. I went through. I don't like to do surveys, so I usually study the survey before I take it. But this one, it's one of those. What is it, monkey survey?
Yeah, Survey Monkey, yeah.
Survey Monkey.
Yeah.
But it's very well designed. I mean, it covered everything. And if you have comments, there's a portion for comments.
Well, there were a number of people involved with putting it together, Frank. You know, that committee I was talking about earlier, we went through draft after draft
It's
of it.
excellent. It's excellent.
But Francois, sitting in the corner back there taking notes, actually schemed up the first draft of it. So she's,
And I would encourage people to do it on the computer, on the phone. You don't want a whole bunch of papers floating around.
Yeah.
It's a burden on the staff.
yeah, it is, it's very much so.
Linda's got a copy of it. It's a huge
It's just right in
two-page.
front of, when you first walk in.
Yeah, and if you want to grab a paper copy just so you can read it, and because that, parallels what you're going to see on the computer.
Right.
So you can grab a copy and use it as a guide.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go.
And one of the questions at the end was about participating, for example, coming to one of these listening sessions. Another one was participating on a related committee. And let's see, so Mr. Walden, what is your first name?
Steve.
Steve.
Sorry, Steve and Frank, y'all's input has been fabulous.
Yes, indeed.
And I would encourage y'all to consider giving some more of your input through one of those committees. And I want to thank everybody on the committee for all the work.
Oh,
that
yes,
they've done.
indeed.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
Nicely done.
Well, we appreciate the compliment and your support. So, we've got a few more of these to go through, and then we're going to roll up our sleeves, and once the survey is completed, we'll put it all together and let everybody know what's out there as far as what people are thinking, and then we'll go to the next step after that. So that's all I have. If anybody have any residual questions they forgot to ask.
Excellent presentation,
So-
Andy. Nicely done.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, George. And you got to give this guy a hand. He makes all this technical stuff happen.
Yeah, George. So George.